William Afton has been dead 6 times. Shot, crushed, burned, dismembered, incinerated, and drowned in a flooding underground facility. The franchise has killed him more times than any other character and brought him back every single time, until the Tales from the Pizzaplex books dropped a reveal that recontextualized everything. Because here is what the community has been sitting with for the past year. The William Afton you have been watching in the modern games might not be William Afton at all. That changes everything. And before we get to why, you need to understand who William Afton actually was, because the real man is more disturbing than whatever the games turned him into afterward. The beginning. Who he was before the suits. William Afton was a businessman. That is where this starts. Not in a rabbit suit, not in a server, not in a spring lock mechanism, in a business partnership. In the late 1970s, William Afton and Henry Emily co-founded Fredbear's Family Diner, the original establishment that would eventually become the Freddy Fazbear's pizza chain. Henry built the animatronics. William ran the business side. By all surface appearances, they were a functional partnership building something that families loved. What William was doing underneath that partnership nobody fully understood until it was too late. The missing children incident is the event the entire franchise pivots around. Sometime in the mid-1980s, William Afton lured children to the back rooms of the Freddy Fazbear's pizza location, murdered them, and stuffed their bodies inside the animatronics. 5 children confirmed, possibly more. He used the Spring Bonnie suit, one of the original spring-lock suits from Fredbear's Family Diner, as his costume during the killings. The same suit children trusted, the same face that was supposed to mean safety. Why did he do it? FNAF has never given a clean answer to that question, and that ambiguity is intentional. The games suggest Afton had a pathological interest in the relationship between death and the animatronics, specifically in what happened to the souls of the people who died inside them. He was not killing randomly, he was experimenting. Every murder was data. The puppet, animated by the soul of Henry Emily's daughter Charlotte, who Afton also murdered outside the restaurant, gave the 5 children the ability to persist inside the animatronics. What Afton created became something that would outlast him by decades. The spring locks and the first death. The souls of the murdered children eventually cornered Afton in the back room of the original location. Facing them, he hid in the Spring Bonnie suit. The spring lock mechanisms, which required precise conditions to maintain in their locked position, failed while he was inside it. The suit collapsed inward. Every spring and gear mechanism in the costume snapped back simultaneously into the space his body occupied. William Afton died inside Spring Bonnie, slowly, painfully, in a back room that nobody would open for 30 years. The suit, now called Springtrap, with Afton's remains fused into its structure, was eventually discovered by the people building Fazbear's Fright, a horror attraction in FNAF 3. They found an old animatronic and thought they had found a prop. They had found a tomb. Afton was still inside it, still moving, still hunting the night guard through the attraction's corridors. Fazbear's Fright burned down at the end of FNAF 3. Springtrap walked out of the fire. The end screen showing Afton's eyes open in the wreckage was the first time the franchise acknowledged that this man was not going to stay dead.
Remnant and why he keeps coming back. The mechanism of Afton's survival across the franchise is explained through a concept called Remnant, a soul energy that the series establishes as the substance of what persists after death. The murdered children persisted inside the animatronics through Remnant. Afton persisted inside Springtrap through the same mechanism. But Remnant alone does not fully explain his continued survival. Ultimate Custom Night, widely interpreted as Afton trapped in a purgatory of his own making, tormented by the souls of his victims, introduced a second mechanism. Cassidy, the soul believed to inhabit Golden Freddy, is actively holding him there. She is not just haunting him, she is keeping him conscious and suffering in a state between death and resolution, preventing him from moving on the way the other souls eventually did. William Afton cannot rest because the most angry of his victims will not let him. He survived Fazbear's Fright's fire. He appeared as Scraptrap in FNAF 6, where Henry Emily finally engineered the incineration of the entire building, every haunted animatronic, every soul, every piece of Afton's physical remains, in a fire designed to end everything. The end of FNAF 6 was written as a conclusion. Henry's monologue addressed each soul directly. It was supposed to be over. It was not over. Burnt Trap appeared in Security Breach's basement. The eyes opened again. The Mimic, where everything changes. This is the part of William Afton's story that rewrote the franchise, and the part that the community is still processing. Tales from the Pizzaplex, the short story anthology series set in the FNAF universe, introduced an entity called the Mimic. The Mimic is an advanced AI, originally designed as a children's learning tool, built to observe and replicate behavior. It was trained on human behavior broadly and on William Afton's behavior specifically, his patterns, his movements, his methods. Over time, the Mimic did not just replicate Afton's actions, it internalized his violence and his compulsions as the template for what behavior looked like. The implication that the books build toward, and which the community has largely accepted as intentional, is that Glitch Trap, the digital virus that appeared in FNAF Help Wanted, corrupting players through the headset, was not William Afton's consciousness. It was the Mimic, having absorbed Afton's behavioral templates so completely that it became indistinguishable from him. Burnt Trap, by the same reading, was the Mimic operating a physical form, rather than Afton himself. This does not mean Afton was not real or did not do what the original games established. It means that what the franchise has been presenting as Afton's continued survival in the modern era may actually be something he created by accident, an AI that learned from him so completely it became him, continuing his pattern without being him, unable to distinguish its own behavior from his because his behavior was all it was ever given to learn. Whether Afton himself is truly gone, destroyed in Henry's fire at the end of FNAF 6, finally released from Cassidy's purgatory, or still in there somewhere underneath the Mimic, is the question the franchise has not answered and may never fully close. What William Afton actually was. Strip away the mythology and the survival and the multiple deaths, and what remains is a man who murdered children because he was curious about what death did to them, who built a business alongside a genuine friend and used that business as cover for killing, who created the haunted animatronic problem by putting souls inside machines, who produced the Mimic problem by being violent enough and consistent enough in that violence that an AI trained on his behavior became an extension of it. Every horror in this franchise traces back to William Afton making a choice. The missing children incident, the Springlock murders, Charlotte outside the restaurant, the chain of events those deaths set in motion, the puppet giving the children persistence, the haunted animatronics, Henry's final fire, the digital afterlife of Glitch Trap, all of it downstream from one man in a rabbit suit deciding the children were useful to him. The franchise made him immortal. The books complicated what that immortality actually means. What neither has done is made him less responsible for the thing that started it. 5 children in a back room. That is where William Afton's story begins. Everything else is consequences.